Hear that? That's the sound of speechless. Like when you give her an unforgettable gift from Jared the Galleria of Jewelry. Whether it's one of the hundreds of new pieces in our collection, one of the exclusive pieces you can only find at Jared, or a custom piece we create just for you, Jared is the place to find the gift.
I love it.
That takes her breath away. And that's why he went to Jared.
You can always count on Bud Light, just like you can always count on Tailgate Terry. Without Tailgate Terry, you wouldn't have cold Bud Lights and 7-layer dip at every pregame. That's 56 layers per season. Just the right amount if you ask Terry. Tailgate Terry is famous among friends. He deserves a Bud Light. Enjoy responsibly. Bud Light Beer, AB St. Louis, Missouri.
Our new presenting sponsor is ZipRecruiter. Are you looking for a smarter way to hire great candidates? With ZipRecruiter, 80% of employers who post a job get a quality candidate to the site in just one day. Try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/06010. That's ZipRecruiter.com/06010.
Yeah, I just had a massive
Matthew
sneeze.
Just nearly,
it just came over me. I didn't hack up. I turned away. Stop it. I turned away from
I wondered what that dust cloud was.
No, stop.
You're in the 06010. Never gonna hustle in case you didn't know. Matthew Berry, TMR.
You guys go ahead. Give me grief for being on SportsCenter for 45 seconds.
I think you could do better than me because I don't think you could.
Jailbait, Field Yates.
You're terrible at hashtag improv. At Field Yates. At Field Yates.
Stephania Bell.
Oh, don't let Barry convert you.
Secret Squirrel, Daniel Dodd.
Make it happen.
Mediocre fantasy advice.
You're older than people realize.
That never stops.
Loyal 06010 listener.
We are on to round 2 of the playoffs. Good morning from the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast. I am Field Yates with the crew. Uncle Matty B. How are you, dude?
Trying to get my
your IFB looks like a jump rope right now.
It's a whole thing. So, yeah, I don't even know if people know what an IFB is.
It's I don't know what it stands for. Something like internal feedback, I think. I made that up.
Sure. It's basically the little earpiece that we all have.
Right.
So that we can hear. So Daniel can yell at us. Daniel can be like, wrap it up.
Right.
Stop talking. That's not funny.
Interruptible foldback.
Yeah.
Not even close to what I thought. But anyway.
So like that's what happens is he gets in our ear.
Right.
And just says stuff to us. He's like, "Hey, I'm talking to Keith." Right, exactly. Like he just said in my ear that he wanted to touch my sweet body.
And no one else heard it. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you for letting everyone else know what I just said.
Yeah, of course.
I appreciate that.
Right. Or he'll just say like, "Oh wow, Keith just told me something really interesting about his weekend last week," or whatever.
Or sometimes he goes in my ear and says, "I really feel sorry for you today."
Usually he goes in my ear.
That one I believe.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you tell Matthew to pick it up? So he usually tells me. Good morning, Stephania.
Good morning, Field.
How you doing?
I have hot water. So
yes, Stephania's been living in misery for the past couple of days. Every day, so I get in early and head over to the gym here, and I've seen Stephania over at the gym in the mornings early, and she.
Do you see me at the gym early?
I see your car parked next to the gym. Does that count?
Fair. All right.
It's close enough, right?
You know it. Yeah, there you
go. I happen to know, you seem to park in the same spot.
I wave at the gym.
Day. Yeah, you wave.
I wave at the gym every morning.
You encourage me to do more.
You know where it's located?
I know where it's located.
Wow, how about
That's
that?
right.
Happens to be, adjacent to the building.
When I go to the calf to get like donuts, I have to walk by the gym. So yeah, sure, of course, I know exactly where it is.
Anyways, Devine, we know you're doing with a few days of no hot water, that's miserable, especially this time of the year.
During the snow,
yeah.
I had no hot water. And look, I get it. There are far worse problems, but taking a freezing cold shower at 5 a.m. when it's pitch black out and you're walking out into the, cold with wet hair and everything, I was grumpy. Not gonna lie, I was a little grumpy yesterday.
I can't blame you for that. So obviously we're on week 2 of the playoffs. I would say this is week 2 of the playoffs because some people call this like the extension of week 1 of the playoffs if you play in a 2-week matchup, as is the default on ESPN.com. Are we on to week 2 of the playoffs in your book?
We are on to week 2 of the playoffs.
Okay, so
we're on to week 2.
We're on to week 2. So in this episode today, we will of course recap last night's game, the What the Heck Just Happened game on Monday Night Football. We'll talk about some waiver wire ads and also
it was a bizarro game.
It was a bizarro game. Like, if I told you that you could...
what if I told you?
What if I told you you could pick between the greatest quarterback of all time alongside the greatest head coach of all time on an 8-game winning streak,
right?
Hadn't allowed more than 17 points in 8 straight games, going against a team quarterbacked by a player who his most notable offseason move was taking a picture naked. I think maybe smoking a cigarette.
Smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
Who'd you choose?
Let me think. Give me a second.
No, take a little more time than that. As much time as you need.
I guess. Well, I would consult my rankings.
First, consult the ranks. Right?
I would consult my rankings, and it would appear that I had the guy that's the greatest quarterback of all time ranked higher than the guy that had been retired 2 months before the season.
Who's going to be a broadcaster?
Who's going to be a broadcaster?
What were you thinking?
I was wrong, my friends.
Wrong.
I was wrong. Wrong. So, I wish I was a man like you. I am a girly boy.
Yeah. That one didn't really count. I just thought I'd throw it in there.
But it was fun to hear. It was good.
I'm good with it.
Yeah.
So let's see. Big news in the Celebrity League, the ESPN Podcast Celebrity League.
Should we save it for later, or should we just talk about it right now?
No, we should. Well, because we got to do an update after we're done with this. So
okay,
let's
so
save
we'll get to that
fine.
in just a little bit.
Fine,
so
fine.
I know.
In
I wonder
the
why you
meantime,
want to
Secret School
talk
never
about
makes
it.
any
It's
fun.
interesting.
In the
It's funny how
meantime-
you want to talk about that.
Yeah.
I was going to say, let's just get to it.
Rewind. Fantasy news
from the National Football League.
This is the instant replay.
You see, what I was doing there was this. As people know, we usually finish the open with Matthew dropping some sort of sometimes cheesy, sometimes cheesy, and sometimes very good, right?
For sure.
Some days you just don't have it.
That's just very correct. Yes, actually correct.
We are just, we're just following Tom Brady's lead from last night.
That's right.
That's it. Some days you just don't have it.
Some
we'll talk about how
days-
Tom Brady did not just have it last night.
Yeah.
We'll get there momentarily. But let's start with some news. And Stephania, to me, the story of the week in the NFL, not for fantasy only, but for fantasy and real football, is the return of Aaron Rodgers. There's an excitement. It's a palpable buzz around the possibility of number 12 suiting up on Sunday. We got an update, though, from the Packers medically on Monday from head coach Mike McCarthy. I don't want to say that his Week 15 status, the narrative changed at all, but we got a bit more context to it.
Well, I think people were looking for Mike McCarthy to say Aaron Rodgers is starting on Sunday and it's full steam ahead. And instead, what he said is Aaron Rodgers underwent a CAT scan. And actually, he said that he underwent a number of scans. But, the CAT scan is the one that's best going to determine the healing of the bone. Remember, plate 13 screws, and they also want to look at the bone healing. And that was being reviewed by not only their team physician, Dr. Pat McKenzie, but a number of other consulting physicians. And most likely, I would assume his surgeon is involved in that as well. So, there's probably a conversation that's happening. If people are wondering, when you return from something like this, they're looking at what does bone healing look like? And there are risks. There's no doubt. I mean, the bone, even when a fracture heals, it continues to do what we call remodel for a number of weeks or months. And so, yes, if he were to take the exact fall that would stress the bone in a certain way, is it possible he could re-injure it? It is. But they're going to decide, is it likely or not likely? And then you factor in how good does he look throwing? And we've already heard that he looks great. So those are the kind of things that they're weighing is what's the level of risk and how concerned should they be?
I think the question everybody is asking right now, and first of all, as of right now, Aaron Rodgers is still available at about 35% of leagues on ESPN.com. If that number does not shrink to 0 by tomorrow, we're all lunatics. All right, I know
it just means no one's reading your column, which is fine.
Which is fine. Listen,
which is fine.
I mean,
we asked
or they're trying to tank.
No,
we just asked that you click it.
Right,
I've always said that with me. Just click the articles,
and then we're good. However,
because they won't know any better. They'll be like, oh, look at all these people reading field as opposed to all these people ignoring field.
Right, exactly, which story of my life in the latter.
Right.
Matthew, everybody, though, is wondering this, and we still have some hurdles to clear, as Stephania just outlined. But let's presume...
I believe.
Okay,
I understand everything. Just Stephania said a bunch of smart stuff.
Right?
I believe he plays.
And let's presume he does, Matthew, on Sunday against the Carolina Panthers.
He's A-Rod, yep.
Carolina Panthers, Week 15, Sunday. How high would Aaron Rodgers rank for quarterbacks for you?
I haven't done my rankings yet. I will do them later today after the TV show.
I've done mine.
After the fantasy show starring Daniel Dopp. I always wait till after the Monday night game to do my ranks.
Right.
But he's definitely going to be inside my top 10. And there's a very good chance he's inside my top, 6 or 7.
I've got him fourth.
Yeah.
I've got him fourth, and he trails only Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, and I want to say that I have. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting whoever it is. Might be
Roethlisberger?
It could be Roethlisberger.
I mean, Roethlisberger's been ridiculous.
He has been ridiculous, and we saw last night that Patriots defense you can throw on them. But anyways, I've got him fourth. To give you an idea of how much confidence I personally have in Aaron Rodgers.
That probably sounds right, like 4th or 5th. I mean, I'm thinking the guys you just mentioned.
I've got
that all make sense.
QB3. I'm sorry,
who?
Drew Brees at QB3 against the Jets. So, Aaron Rodgers, I think the bottom line is we have seen him return from injury in the past and quickly make his mark. Not saying that circumstances are the same. Unlike a player that might play a more athletic position where you're required to run and plant and cut on every single play.
Cut to Aaron Rodgers going, athletic.
And he is athletic,
right.
Don't get me wrong, but this is a running back coming back from a knee issue where he's got to plant, etc. I just feel a significant confidence in Aaron Rodgers. We'll talk about this throughout the week. Some updates here, sort of putting bows on a couple of injuries, Stephania. Carson Wentz, we got the news that we feared yesterday for the Eagles quarterback.
Right, confirmed torn ACL from the Eagles. But the good news, Chris Mortensen reporting that it appears to be an isolated ACL tear. And if you're talking about trying to find silver linings when you have injury situations, the fact that it's a less complicated repair, it's not multi-ligament, doesn't sound like there was serious meniscal damage. Obviously, till they get in there, they don't know everything for sure, but at least from the outset, it appears to be an isolated ACL repair. I saw a lot of chatter in the social media about what's the timeline for him and can he be ready to start the season. And these things, I don't know how many guys coming back from ACL reconstruction we have to talk about to say again, it's a range. It depends on the individual. It depends on the athlete. Everybody kind of looks back to the Adrian Peterson, look at how he came back and he played running back. But we don't necessarily know that that's the best thing for his long-term career. Remember that Carson Wentz is just very young in his career. So you want his knee to be for sure healthy and him ready to go, and the style of football that he plays. You need him to be mobile. You can't have him limping about. So just understand that we're not going to get a really good picture of this until you start getting into the summer.
So certainly we talked about the trickle-down impact on pass catchers, and later on in the show we'll have some waiver wire ads of note at the quarterback spot if you're looking to replace Carson Wentz. That was encouraging, though. If somebody who rosters him in a dynasty or a keeper league, what you just said right there about, I know you didn't put a timetable on it, but we feel encouraged. I think long term, I'm not concerned that Carson Wentz has the capability to become an outstanding quarterback again for the Eagles.
He already is.
No, but he's saying after this significant injury.
Right.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that
No, I mean, become a outstanding quarterback again, which is why I said it.
Continue being. How about that?
Okay, I continue being or becoming again.
It makes it sound like he's not an outstanding quarterback.
Would you the grammar, please?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Parsing words, Matthew Berry. Josh McCown, Stephania, we found out yesterday.
I'm like people on Twitter.
That's right, yeah. We found out yesterday that Josh McCown is going to miss the rest of the year because of that non-throwing hand issue. Right,
and he is going to have surgery to repair the fracture in his hand and done for the year. So obviously it's sad for him. We talked about this yesterday. He was very emotional, finally getting through a year where it looked like he was going to escape injury through the season, and it happens late. But
I feel awful for him because it was, to your point, Stephanie, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but he was having such a great year.
I know.
You know what I mean? Just played so well, and I think sort of changed the narrative on his career, changed the journeyman, career backup, that kind of stuff. Showed he could, on a team that people expected to go winless, to compete with the Browns for the number 1 pick next year, and made them relevant. I mean, they were actually leading the division at one point.
Yep.
I mean, and they were competitive in almost every game. And I just, so at age 38, I just feel bad. Josh McCown was up here in the summer.
Yep.
He did a sketch for the fantasy show. Yeah. Just a good dude. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Todd Bowles said yesterday he was one of his most favorite players he has coached in 17 years in the profession.
Yeah,
everybody who meets Josh McCown understands why, beyond football, after his playing career, he is bound for good things. Another quarterback injury, Stephania, we are monitoring is Tyrod Taylor. This much we know. He's going to start when he's healthy. We just don't know when that will be, and he's not the only banged-up Bills quarterback.
Well, it's interesting because obviously Peterman left with a concussion, and that's why Joe Webb ended up finishing out that game for them at quarterback. Tyrod Tyrod Taylor was still having trouble with mobility in that left knee, the patellar tendon contusion. It's interesting because Tyrod Taylor has already said that he expects to be starting and he plans to play this week, where Sean McDermott was like, not really sure yet that's going to be the case. So it's one of those where you're going to watch what he does in practice. He really didn't do much till very late in the week, just did a little bit, and there wasn't confidence that he could move as well as he would need to for him to be both safe for himself and effective.
We'll see on this one. Again, I think we're at the point now where if you've made it this far in the playoffs, if Tyrod Taylor starts, you're probably not considering starting him. A matchup against Miami that after last night looks a little bit less favorable for them. And I'm not sure that you're really feeling that confident about starting any Bills pass catchers either. It's LaShawn McCoy, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Because at this point of the year, we don't want to overthink things too much.
You don't want to get cute. Yeah, I mean, I just can't imagine starting anyone other than Tyrod. I'm sorry, I'm thinking
LaShawn McCoy.
LaShawn McCoy, yeah, exactly. We don't know what the weather will be like, but we expect it won't be ideal.
Right, going from Miami to Buffalo this time of year, not always fun.
Yeah, no.
Mike Davis, Stephania for the Seahawks. Gosh,
I know they really have a
it's
some
crazy.
jinx or something. They need to go burn some sage around the running back groups in Seattle.
Seriously, my goodness gracious. Mike Davis, their running back, their latest starter, has got 31 carries over the past 2 games. Now dealing with a ribs issue.
Right, and common for you take contact, you're bound to get a rib issue at some point. Pete Carroll, in his usual optimistic fashion, says he's moving around pretty good, but not ready to commit to him being available for this week. So Mike Davis probably the best running back right now on Seattle and questionable at this point for this weekend.
And just another guy you feel bad for, former practice squad player, finally getting a chance. And
if he plays, I feel okay with him as like a borderline top 30 play at running back this week in my initial ranks.
And honestly, in this case,
they're at home against the Rams. You can run on the Rams. Yeah,
I would say, with the rib injury, it'd be hard to fib about him moving around well, because when you see guys who are really, when it's a rib fracture, the one thing they do, they splint. They kind of try not to move at all. They don't twist. They don't want to stretch because everything moves, it bothers them. If he's moving well, that's actually, if that is true, that is actually a legit good sign for him for the status for the weekend.
All right, so we'll keep an eye on Mike Davis as we move forward. Samaje Perine, Stephania, kind of just want to clean this up because when you hear a player leaves with a stomach issue, you don't know, does he have a tummy ache? Does he have,
tummy ache, that's so cute.
Right, or does he have like a core issue, like a ribs or whatever?
And that's what you would think. Like when I hear stomach or abdominal, I think potentially that's a core muscle injury, and that's something that can turn into something big. But the report is he was dealing with a tummy ache. It was an illness.
Almost literally,
an illness, and expected to be fine for this weekend.
Which is good news. The Redskins on Sunday play the Arizona Cardinals. I happen to love the point of the NFL calendar when we have Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday Night Football. Just as an aside, for some reason I was thinking the Redskins play on Saturday night, but they play on Sunday, right? They play Saturday. On Sunday night. I'm sorry. On Sunday afternoon. Excuse me.
I think you're being a little loose with the phrase play.
Okay. They are competing. They're showing up
on the field.
They'll be on the field.
They'll be on the field. They'll get a participation trophy.
Last one here, Stephania, Marcus Mariota. Again, not that you're considering starting him, but it has an impact on players
on the rest of the team. Angry Marcus Mariota, apparently.
Yeah.
Pissed off Marcus Mariota after last week's game. And we heard about a knee injury.
Do you think he has himself on his own fantasy team? Do you think that's why he's so angry?
Nah.
I think Marcus Mariota and I might be the same. Look, when it comes to being pissed off,
it's like he said, shoot. I know.
Chuck darn fudge.
Yeah, and it's just hard to see him. He's such a nice guy.
At what point would have Marcus Mariota dropped himself from his own fantasy team? Got to be by week 8, I would think. And by the way, to your point, just all accounts are an awesome dude.
Right.
All accounts are just
here's
one of the all-time
funny,
best.
is if you look at all the reporters who cover the Titans, they were like, wow, he was visibly pissed off. He was visibly angry. So, this was a big change for a guy who's pretty even-keeled. But importantly, as far as the injury concern, he has already been established that he is expected to practice Wednesday and expected to play this week.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Delaney Walker.
I know.
Yeah, Delaney Walker's still the only good sign. They are staying on the West Coast. They play Stephania's red-hot 49ers.
That's right.
Let's recap last night's game. The Dolphins win this one 27-20. I'm not sure the game was really that close. It got a little bit competitive in the fourth quarter, but the Dolphins improved to 6-7. Yeah, Miami looked fantastic last night. Let's get right to it on the Dolphins. couple of legitimately a superstar performance from Kenyon Drake last night. I tweeted this last night, and I think it's sort of worth reiterating. The Jay Ajayi trade has made a lot more sense to me since Kenyon Drake has become a full-time player. Because you see what a guy with his ability brings to the table. 25 rushes last night, 114 yards, 5 catches for 79 yards. He had a long catch down the sideline. I believe it was Landon Roberts in coverage, so he can expose linebackers in coverage. And he had a play last night that nearly went for a touchdown, where it was a run that went to the offense's left. A safety is hard charging into the background. Drake pirouettes and spins and runs all the way back around the right side for like a 27-yard gain. This guy looks like the real deal at this point. Like, your confidence is completely sealed. So
interesting. I've been high on a couple years ago when he came in as a rookie. I don't know if you remember this, Matthew. We talked about him. I loved Kenyon Drake. I went down to the Dolphins in camp. They were excited about him. I loved him. And I loved him based on what I'd seen in Alabama. And I also knew he was exceptionally tough. The things he played through, very similar to what Thomas Davis had, the fractured forearm in the plate. He came out and helped Alabama win the national title. I loved him. And then I thought, what happened over the first couple of years? Like, did they not like him so much?
Well,
why is he not getting the opportunity?
They saw him as I remember when he came out in the draft, I think the quotes around him were, third down guy, pass catcher, situational player, that kind of stuff. Didn't think he could be.
He was there with Derrick Henry
in
Alabama, so he definitely was not alone in the spotlight. But this, to me, is what Kenyon Drake was, and now you're seeing it.
It's sort of interesting. So a couple of things. First off, to your point, last 2 weeks without Damian Williams, he has been the 5th best running back in fantasy since the Jay Ajayi trade.
Yep.
He has been the 9th best running back in fantasy, a legit RB1. And it's always interesting, and Field, you can speak to this, of course, from with your front office experience, but I don't know how many people truly appreciate politics on a football team. And just the idea of and so I think this is a great example of where people, I think, were very surprised about the Jay Ajayi trade.
Yep.
And a lot of times coaches will know, we got to get Kenyon Drake on the field. But you know what? Jay Ajayi is, quote, the guy, and we can't just bench him because that hurts the dynamic of the football team. That hurts the politics. I mean, there are, like any group, wherever you are, whether you're in class, in school. I mean, just think about your class. Think about, if you're at a job in your department or whatever it is you do, right? There's politics. There's a pecking order. Whether you agree with that pecking order or not, there is. It's just in terms of how people relate to each other and how bosses see, and sometimes the agenda of somebody in charge may not be the same point of view as the people that are the worker bees, if you will.
Yep.
And so, you sort of saw it this year. And again, I don't know what the situation was, but it seems like perhaps the Jay Ajayi trade was we've got to figure out a way to get Kenyon Drake on the field, and it's not as simple as just us saying, all right, Drake, you're starting and he's not. And you wonder if that was the same situation in Carolina where they traded Kelvin Benjamin to try to free up Devin Funchess.
Well, put it this way, there are a lot of layers to that Jay Ajayi trade. Certainly it felt like it was obvious that Adam Gase called him out and said, guys aren't taking their work home and caring enough about football outside of the facility. And he basically called out Jay Ajayi by trading him a couple of days later. First of all, and also with Kenyon Drake, and maybe to a degree Damian Williams, but mostly Drake, we're seeing this with Green Bay right now. Mm-hmm. Sometimes teams discover things they don't even realize about a player. And when you are a player that is barely getting reps, your mentality can be different. You may not perform as well as somebody who's got that feature role. Think about how much more energized you are when you are the feature guy. When you're the starter, I tell people this is not that we can relate to athletes in a million different ways. They're professional athletes making millions of dollars to play a game that we all love. But just think about when a moment presents itself to you, you step up to it. Or it can make you wilt. Kenyon Drake goes from a toiling backup job to a featured role. You're going to be hyped, and you're going to want to be the best you can be.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Stephania. I was just going to say he became a star last night.
I think there's something to continue on what Field said. I think there's something to confidence too when you play. They talk about guys getting in a rhythm and stuff, but it's I'm playing, you're having success, and now they're more confident to be a little bit more aggressive in the way that they play, take a little bit more risk. And so I feel like Kenyon Drake is confident. He's running. It's a perfect time to put him on your fantasy team and have him play because he is running exceptionally well.
How about this? I said this on the podcast before, but how about this? Back in 2013, when Alabama's football season began, this was their running back depth chart. You ready for this?
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
TJ Yeldon.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Derrick Henry. Kenyon Drake.
Right.
Alvin Kamara.
Right.
Now, Jelson Fowler, who was recently waived by the Tennessee Titans, he's also he's an H-back. He's a fullback. He was part of the mix, too. 5 guys in the backfield are playing at the NFL level. So Kenyon Drake, a player that we feel comfortable.
And they're stars, even though they were sharing work there.
Right.
And what you like about the fact that they were sharing work is maybe that means that they're a little bit going to last a little bit longer in the NFL.
But, Stephania, I think your point about confidence is such a great one because it's completely correct when you're in practice and you're getting literally 5 reps a day. Like, that's what it is. In the NFL, when you're not a star, when you're the backup at a position, you don't get very many reps.
You just don't. It can impact your mentality.
It can, right. You can just you start feeling, and you miss 1 or 2 of those, you don't have a great play on one of those 2 reps. An offensive line misses a block, whatever. Yeah. And then, but there's another thing where it's just like, you're the man.
Yep. And here is Kenyon Drake as the man. So he was awesome last night, 24.3 points in PPR scoring. We don't know if Damian Williams will return next week, but the bottom line is, if he does, it's clear Kenyon Drake is going to get the majority of the workload. Jarvis Landry, you are tried, you are true, you are awesome. He continues his streak of at least 5 catches in every game this season, the only player that can do so, and all of a sudden he's scoring touchdowns like crazy. He's got 8 touchdowns this year after 2 more last night. That's as many as he had in 2015 and 2016 combined.
Didn't he have a couple back-to-back touchdowns where I literally looked down and looked back up and he was back in the end zone? There were 2 that were very close together.
You know what's cool is they run these really nifty, they're passing plays, but they sort of serve the purposes of running plays. A lot of them have run-pass options to them in Miami, which when you get down to the 6-yard line, when you're a little bit too far to just sort of smash it in, but not far away to drop back and pass it, they're very creative with their utilization of Jarvis Landry, locked in as a top 15 wide receiver every week going forward.
I would agree. You know what? And your thoughts on Kenny Stills and Devontae Parker? I mean, Stills had such a nice stretch there and then just sort of disappeared in this game. Not a particularly great matchup at Buffalo next week, too.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Patriots are
on that wide receiver 3 and 4 radar.
Yeah, I mean, other than one deep shot down the field last night.
Kenyon Drake was doing so well in terms of moving the ball.
It's just
to me, it's one of those games. If you're starting a non-Landry wide receiver next week, I still think I prefer Stills over Parker.
Again, Tom Brady was not himself last night. He was 233 passing yards. Go ahead.
I want to ask a question of Stephania Bell, if I may.
Okay.
I turn to Stephania Bell. Stephania Bell, you're a licensed physical therapist and all-around smarty pants. Tom Brady's Achilles hurting him. He's been on the injury report for the last couple of weeks. He looked old to me last night. He looked 40.
Yeah, I mean,
honestly,
the week before that, he looked 28 to me. So
right.
He's Tom Brady. He is literally the GOAT. He is literally the greatest of all time. But
during the broadcast, they showed him doing a little thing on the sideline, and they were talking about it was like a little repetitive motion thing that he was doing, like a warm-up. Almost looked like he was taking boxing punches, and he had another player sort of spotting him there. And they were like, he had sat out a long time because Miami had the possession for an extended period of time. So they're like, he was trying to loosen up, trying to get loose, kind of stiff. And look, you could say what you will, that can happen to anyone, but you're never going to hear from Tom Brady that anything's affecting him. And at times he looks amazing.
From your trained eye watching the game last night, was it just do you think it was just a bad game, or it's the second bad game in a row? By bad, I mean under 10 fantasy points.
Correct.
Single-digit fantasy points 2 weeks in a row. And he's been on the injury report the last couple of weeks. He is 40 years old. I mean, he is a freak of nature.
Right.
But I'm just asking the question, Field Yates.
And I don't think that we can say look. I would say it can't be not bothering him at all, or he wouldn't be on the injury report and missed 2 days of practice. That wouldn't be happening if it was nothing. But is it really the thing that's the reason for the way he played in that game? Probably not.
Field Yates, you've already done your rankings this week. I'm doing mine later today. Where did Tom Brady come in your ranking?
He slid precipitously to 2. He slid to 2. I get it, Matthew. I totally understand what you are saying about how. I look at it last night as this. I look at it over the past 2 weeks as this. They won that game against Buffalo last week, 23-3. They completely obliterated Buffalo on the ground. They had
didn't need to throw, right?
They didn't have to throw the football at all. They get down to the 1 yard line on 2 separate occasions. On maybe 50% of those plays throughout the course of the year, Tom Brady might throw the football on 1st and goal from the 1, as we saw last night. And then last night, believe it or not, like players have their outlier games.
Yeah.
Sometimes once a season. And for whatever reason, the Patriots have often had that game in Miami against the Dolphins. I am not particularly concerned about Tom Brady. I'm still starting him. I think the questions here, though, are, do you have any lost confidence in Brandon Cooks or Chris Hogan? Chris Hogan returned last night, was not impacted by the shoulder by the naked eye vision.
Yeah, I do think he looked a little off to me. I was obviously paying close attention to him. I mean, he only had one catch, but he had 5 targets, and there was one I thought, it looked like that when a guy hasn't been on the field for over a month, and Tom Brady's throwing it, and Chris Hogan's not quite getting there. I mean, there were a couple shots down the field where he just wasn't there.
Right.
And so, is that a timing thing? Is that he's not running quite? Yeah. Remember, he didn't start running till quite late in the process because he was completely resting the shoulder. So even though he was out there and he got through it fine and no word of any shoulder setback and there didn't appear to be any issues, I did notice when he had his one catch, he took a big hit, bounced right back up. So things you saw that you liked.
I mean, almost had a touchdown. He was a foot away from a touchdown.
He got 1 foot in. It up to first game back. As far from a health perspective, I'm not worried about him.
Yeah. And also, so you think about this, right? So Chris Hogan comes back after a lengthy absence. No Rob Gronkowski. So the offense just wasn't what they're used to.
Right.
And then you add that into the fact that Brady just wasn't having a good game.
Yeah.
Just had an off day. So it just all, sort of just didn't come together in the way that you want. I agree that it depends on who else you have on your roster, but chances are you're starting Tom Brady and you're starting Cooks and Hogans and the running backs here. I don't take much out of the running back. The fact that James White got in the end zone here, I'd still Burkhead and Lewis for me.
Yeah, still Burkhead and Lewis. James White played a lot more last night. They were down by multiple scores. Deion Lewis continues to run really hard. The issue is for
that
him.
Catch, by the way.
Roster, ridiculous. He had 5 catches last night, which was good to see for Lewis. The one hard part for Lewis here is the one reason why I'm going to have a harder time pushing him closer to 10 than 20 is merely that Rex Burkhead's the go-to guy in the goal line situation.
Yes.
He's got 7 touchdowns already this year, does Rex Burkhead. So Deion Lewis is running fantastic, and he's fun to watch.
Has there been a bigger drop in has there been a bigger non-injury fantasy value drop this year than Mike Gillislee, who in the first couple of weeks was people like, he's the new LeGarrette Blount, 18 rushing touchdowns to healthy scratch.
From the start of the season to the end, I'm not even close. I think that's got to be it, right?
Right, because he's been virtually every week a healthy scratch.
Right. And I mean, and the first couple of weeks,
right.
Everyone was just like
week 3 or whatever it was.
People were trading first round players for Gillislee.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. He was healthy. He was sick last night. It wasn't a healthy scratch, but still, I mean, he has been a healthy scratch. But still, yes.
A bunch of the time.
The point remains. The good news for the Patriots: Gronk is back next week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. People usually put a lot of thought into the gifts they give during the holidays. Like, I feel like Stephania would do that.
Yeah.
But sometimes the best gift ideas are the ones right in front of you because they're things you use every day, like Bombas socks.
I love socks.
Bombas, me too. Bombas are the most comfortable socks in the history of feet. Matthew, you're old. You can confirm this. There's been a lot of socks in your lifetime. Made from premium cotton, Bombas stay warm in the winter and cool in the summer. And every pair comes with a built-in blister tab, innovative arch support, stay-up technology, and a seamless toe. They are the gift that keeps on giving. Seriously, because for every pair of Bombas you buy, they donate a pair to someone in need, which is a great thought, especially around the holiday season.
I love this.
Spread some holiday cheer with Bombas. They have great discounts when you buy in bulk, awesome gift boxes, holiday-themed socks, even ski socks. I got my trip to Vail booked for after the season. Can't wait for that.
Nice.
Bombas has everything for every occasion, quality and comfort guaranteed. Buy the perfect gift for everyone on your list at bombas.com/focus today and get 20% off your first purchase. That's bombas.com/focus for 20% off. Bombas.com/focus.
Seeing your team win is thrilling. Watching them win in overtime is even better. And the best of all, enjoying some award-winning Larceny wheated bourbon while you cheer them on. Larceny is made with more wheat for a smoother taste. Our master distillers hand-select only the finest barrels for a true small batch bourbon. Get caught in the act. Unlock the smoothness of Larceny Bourbon. Larceny Bourbon, Bardstown, Kentucky. 46% alcohol by volume. Think wisely, drink wisely.
Hear that? That's the sound of speechless. Like when you give her an unforgettable gift from Jared the Galleria of Jewelry. Whether it's one of the hundreds of new pieces in our collection, one of the exclusive pieces you can only find at Jared, or a custom piece we create just for you, Jared is the place to find the gift
I love it.
that takes her breath away. And that's why he went to Jared.
It's New York Times bestselling author Matthew Berry with another self-serving, self-indulgent, all-about-me promo.
As you guys know, I'm working with my friends over at Draft.com, and they have a pretty cool offer. Oh, you know, we talked about it last week as well.
More, yeah.
Yeah, but so you can go to Draft.com/Barry or use code Barry on the code, and you're going to receive a free $3 entry. Okay.
Yep.
But here's the thing: people are like, I don't know if I want to play DFS. I don't know, that kind of thing. I don't know if I want to try a new website. You know, people have places where they play.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing: Draft is so sure that you will love their site and that you will love playing on Draft that they are offering all the people that follow me a money-back guarantee up to $100 on their first contest.
Wow.
So literally,
that's pretty good insurance.
I mean, basically, make it a deposit, play me, play whatever. You don't like it, money-back guarantee.
Wow.
Up to $100 on your first contest.
Very cool. I'd like to hear that.
I mean, so I will tell you this: it is fun. Like, and listen. They pay me. Make no mistake. But I've been very blessed in my career, and there were a number of DFS companies that were interested in working with me.
Sure, yeah.
And with no disrespect to any of the other companies, because I enjoy DFS and I enjoy a lot of the companies out there. I think there's a lot that do a great job here, so this is not a knock against anyone else. But I chose Draft because I got to tell you something. It's fun. It's fun just doing these little drafts. Like you do a weekly, I mean, what's the best part of fantasy, right? It's the draft. And so you just do, these drafts, like just me versus you, or you can do like a 6-person draft. And
I've seen you post like, I'm getting ready to do a draft against me.
Yeah, no, and it's fun. And it's just like, it's literally like, it's like quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 pass catchers. Like you're not going deep. It's just like,
it's quick.
And it's quick. And so you're choosing from superstars, and it's fun and it's easy.
Any number of teams can do it. Like you could have 6 teams in your
contest. You could have 10 teams. Yeah. You could have as many as you want. You just play head to head.
You could do 2 head to head.
I was going to say, it could be kind of fun to do that one of these days.
I know. I'll try it.
Yeah,
maybe Field and I will play against you.
There you go.
Maybe we'll do a little pod draft.
Yeah, we could do that. You want to do that?
Wait, let's do
Brainiacs versus the Orangemen?
Yeah, we could certainly do that. And like I said, as always, everything I win gets donated to the Jimmy V Foundation for Cancer Research, jimmyv.org. Of course, you can also always donate to Field, runfieldrun.com. How are we doing on the where are we on the goal at runfieldrun.com?
We are doing great. My fantastic father, Bill Yates, made a very generous donation last night.
All right,
recently.
Yates.
Yeah.
Papa Yates.
For Papa Yates.
So we are
stepping up.
$27,000.
Oh my gosh!
$96.20. How about that?
There you go.
We are completely blown away.
That's awesome.
By everybody's support and your generosity and the encouragement. I want you guys to know, as I've been saying, I've been writing everybody back who has donated. And I love when you guys send notes. It's fun to hear some of your stories. People have shared personal stories. People have shared funny jokes. They've talked about their favorite parts of the podcast, mostly Stephania, and all kinds of other encouraging words. So thank you to everybody who's gone to runfieldrun.com.
If you need a stick of Tide, Field is your guide. If you're in Bristol or in Farmington, you should find another ride. Candidly, he hates Mike Clay, and you know that it's a fact. Every Yater's gonna Yate, 'cause he's on TV every day. A spicy tomato who's got the stats and tweets that'll make you laugh. He's our favorite host and everybody knows his name. He's Field Yates.
Field Yates, you are the author of the Waiver Wire column every single Tuesday on ESPN.com. I'm a company man. So let's tune to the waiver wire. I just lost Carson Wentz. I just lost Josh McCown.
Yeah.
I need a quarterback, Field Yates.
Blake Bortles. So as everybody knows, who probably listens to this podcast every week, the qualifications, if you are available in more than 50% of leagues, you qualify for this column. If you are not, then you do not qualify for this column. So let me just put the caveat out there that obviously Aaron Rodgers would be the priority. And beyond that,
he's available in
about 35%
of leagues, right?
Case Keenum's available in about 44% of leagues.
Right, sure.
And Jameis Winston also floating there, like just a little bit more of an established quarterback than some of the names that we might be considering. But believe it or not, Blake Bortles, available in about 80% of leagues, cracks this week's top waiver wire ads at quarterbacks.
Bortling his way to the top of your heart, Field Yates.
Over the past 3 weeks, only 2 quarterbacks have scored at least 18.5 fantasy points in each game. Russell Wilson and Blake Bortles. And he's completing 71% of his passes over his last 2 games. And look at his matchups. Upcoming, he's got Houston and San Francisco.
Right.
In theory, so some leagues only play through week 16 of the playoffs. Sure. You could legitimately start Blake Bortles in the final 2 weeks of your playoff season. I understand the risk. I understand that this could be a team that throws the ball 12 times in a game if it goes according to the script, so to speak. And there's some nerves this week that they're going to overwhelm Houston, and that will be the case. At the same time, I think that Blake Bortles, you could do a lot worse than starting Blake Bortles this week.
I would agree with that. One little thing that I just sort of want to bring up, though, the 49ers aren't terrible on defense anymore.
I mean, listen.
Now, last 4 weeks, they are the 4th best defense, the 4th best passing defense in the NFL. Now, they played Houston, they played Chicago, they played Seattle, and they had a bye week, right? So those are the last 4 weeks. So it's not a murderer's row there, but Russell Wilson's in there.
Yep.
But I just, they played better. I just want to. I agree with the assessment, by the way, on Blake Bortles, who has played really, really well.
Yep.
For all the jokes that he's played very well. But I just want to say that I don't know that I think San Francisco is more of a middle of the pack matchup these days than it is like just sort of the cakewalk that I think people were thinking of at the beginning of the year.
I agree there. Jimmy Garoppolo, speaking of the 49ers, is also a quarterback on the waiver wire streaming options list. Now, here's the upside. In his 2 starts, he's completing nearly 66% of his passes, 313.5 passing yards per game. Now, the touchdowns haven't really been there, but I think those are more likely to come than they are to stay out of the mix right now for Jimmy Garoppolo. The issue with Jimmy G is this. The matchup this week, not necessarily bad, right? Like, you're not necessarily afraid of the Tennessee Titans. You don't love the matchup, you don't hate it either. It's week 16 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. You're saying to yourself, am I going to pick up a quarterback and then have to stream somebody else in my championship week if I make it that far? Because I would just not advocate starting any quarterback outside of really like Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, and maybe Aaron Rodgers against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So for a week, Jimmy Garoppolo is certainly a name to keep in mind. And listen, you can manage your roster week to week. It's not like you have to make a decision that lasts for the rest of the year. Just a suggestion there on Jimmy Garoppolo. When it comes to running backs, Wayne Gallman's sort of intriguing. He's available in 98% of leagues, and he has 3 games this season with 10-plus carries, and in those 3 games, he's averaging 4.6 yards per attempt. Here's the intriguing part, though, is on Fantasy Football Now on Sunday morning. We talked about this yesterday during the show. Dan Graziano mentioned that Wayne Gallman was likely to have a more prominent role for the New York Giants. And he did. He had a great game on Sunday, nearly 17 fantasy points, in part because he had 7 catches for 40 yards. Now, Orleans Darkwa still got 10 rushing attempts, and certainly Darkwa's played well this year. We have all advocated for Darkwa to get even more work. But when they fired Ben McAdoo, apparently Ben McAdoo was a particularly fond of Orleans Darkwa, and that's why Wayne Gallman perhaps got more work. If you're into factors like game script and likelihood that a player can continue to stay involved, I think it's worth noting that even with Nick Foles, don't you think the Eagles are probably going to win this game on Sunday?
I would think so, yes, sir.
Which would lend the idea that, Gallman could be in there for passing downs, right? Hey, 100%. You might have opportunities where they're playing either down big or down late and they need to make up yards in a hurry. I don't know how much confidence I have in Gallman as a not a must start by any stretch, but I'll tell you this much. We're in the War Room League. It's a 16-team league.
Yeah.
My team has Wayne Gallman, and we haven't really sort of thought through our lineup for week 15 in too much earnest yet. Well, if we got Frank Gore against the Broncos on Thursday night,
coming off of 36 carries or whatever
it
is,
and a short week, it's a good Broncos defense. We're playing the number 1 seed in the league. Maybe the upside of Wayne Gallman would trump the potential low floor, or low ceiling, I should say, of Frank Gore.
Yeah, and it's a PPR league as well. It makes sense that the Giants, who, for whatever reason, they just don't seem to want to commit to Orleans Darkwa.
Right.
Wayne Gallman was, is the rookie, I want to say fourth round. Was he a fourth rounder this year?
Fifth round pick.
Yeah, something like that.
Yep, from Clemson.
And it's performed well when he's gotten an opportunity here. So it makes sense that in a season that hasn't gone the way New York wants to try to get an extended look at their young running back.
I'll make a quick on Kerwin Williams. He's handled 82% of the Arizona running back carries over the last 2 weeks, available in 80% of leagues. Not a great option here. A pretty low ceiling. We don't know on Adrian Peterson, but it sure sounds like it's possible he'd miss this week, Stephania.
I mean, there's been nothing encouraging yet.
Yeah. Now that could change. He's a freak, and he's a unique dude, and he probably is motivated to get back out there on the field. But Kerwin Williams, low ceiling player, but still in deep leagues, you may have better options.
Yeah, I mean there's actually volume there, right? And a lot of times in fantasy, that's what you're just looking for with running backs, is just someone that can touch the ball quite a bit.
Yep.
We talked about Mike Davis earlier in terms of the rib injuries. We don't know whether but Pete Carroll's optimistic. If he goes field, he makes your list.
Yeah, I mean, look at what he's done against arguably the two best run defenses in football this season, Philadelphia and Jacksonville.
Right.
31 carries for 130 yards. Like, that's pretty good right there. And J.D. McKissick is still involved, but he's really a wide receiver. Like, I think the carries are going to remain Mike Davis's as long as he plays. This is week 15. Like, I'm not advocating for players that are available that are going to be, top 15 plays, because they're not available, right? That's the reality. So week 15, looking for a last-minute plug-and-play into your flex, I think Mike Davis, if he plays, would be one to consider.
I would agree. If I need a pass catcher, I feel like there's a couple of good options.
This actually might be the area where you can find some value this week. Marquise Goodwin for the 49ers. Again, we're sort of tugging at Stephania's heartstrings here.
Yeah, we are.
Here's what we've done. Here's what
he's
done.
It's been a very pro-Stephania show. I'm not sure how comfortable I am with it.
Well, it's about time. It only took until week 15. So, you don't have to feel badly about giving me one.
Giving your 49ers. Giving your 49ers, yeah.
49ers love. It took them till week 15 to get love.
For sure.
14 catches on 20 targets for 205 yards for Marquise Goodwin in Jimmy Garoppolo's 2 starts. He's just, Goodwin's a good player. He's got excellent speed.
Lightning
and
fast.
There's no other, major threat to steal targets in that San Francisco offense. I think that, Marquise Goodwin should be on your radar. And he, in my initial ranks, in a decent matchup against Tennessee, I want to say he was right on the border of top 30 for me.
That makes total sense. Getting a ton of target share with a good quarterback in a good matchup. And I just remember the preseason, and, we joke about Stephania and her 49er bias, but, she goes to all the training camps, she talks to everyone, and I remember her coming out of the San Francisco camp saying, Marquise Goodwin, remember this name. I just remember you talking about him at the beginning of the year and just how special the 49ers in their current organization thought about him.
Well, and the thought that they were going to use him a little differently than what he was seen as in Buffalo. I mean, Buffalo, he was like the one big play,
deep threat,
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And it sounded in camp, it looked in camp when they were running practice, they were using him differently, and you expected him to have more volume of work, and it just hadn't worked out until Jimmy Garoppolo showed up. And nobody more excited. Marquise Goodwin giving up his seat on the bus to Jimmy Garoppolo after his first start, and a lot of love from him for the quarterback.
Sure.
Bottom line is this: it's not our job to root for players. Stephania does root for the 49ers, obviously, but Marquise Goodwin, you like to see good things continue to happen to him. Obviously, his family has been through a lot with the loss of their infant child earlier on this season. D.D. Westbrook.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as Blake Bortles goes.
Yeah, D.D. Westbrook has at least 5 catches and 8 targets in 3 straight games. If you didn't see the touchdown dance he had, it was fantastic against the Seahawks this past Sunday. Westbrook, a good player, came with a lot of acclaim out of Oklahoma, had to miss the beginning of the year because of injury. He's back. The next 2 opponents, again, they're not that bad for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Houston and then at San Francisco. So those are the pass catchers of note for this week on the waiver wire column. Don't overthink things too much. Play your studs, trust your studs, start your studs. But if you've got something like the Carson Wentz situation, certainly is the most notable area where you could be adding a player this week, or if Aaron Rodgers is available, these are some names to consider. So that's 100%. It for the waiver wire. In the meantime, we are back on Wednesday. And
before we are back on Wednesday, though, let's talk about another thing.
Good call.
Okay.
It's time now for our weekly updates, brought to you by ZipRecruiter with a bunch of leagues. Stephania, Actually, I'll go to Daniel to start. Daniel, can you tell us about the Men's League and how that is going as we enter the semifinals?
Absolutely. So we had 2 matchups this week. Football Chad, Thursday Night Football Chad, taking on Cartoonist Ben. Cartoonist Ben won 108.5 to 106, even though he had Chris Hogan and Jimmy Graham in the lineup, getting him a total of 1.1 points. And you know why? Alvin Kamara getting hurt just sunk the ship. He had Alvin Kamara, Kareem Hunt all season long, but just wasn't able to make it through to the second round. So Cartoonist Ben is moving on to the semifinals to take on Wedding Vows Ford. The other matchup was groom/dad-to-be Ryan taking on me, Secret Squirrel. My team had 123.9 points. Groom/dad-to-be Ryan had 69.1. So I crushed him like a grape.
Well done, Daniel.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. At least in one of the leagues that I'm in, I'm actually doing something decent.
How about that?
We don't want to say what league you're not doing decent in, but you may want to tune into the fantasy show at 5 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2.
And so I will now be taking on the number 2 seed, the official number 1 fan. So it's Wedding Vows Ford is the 1 seed, official number 1 fan is the 2 seed. I am the 3 seed, and Cartoonist Ben is the 4 seed. So that is the Men's League. We are getting down to it.
Stephania, would you like to update us on the Women's League?
Yeah, I just had a massive
Matthew
sneeze.
just nearly,
it just came over me.
Hacked up a lung on Stephania.
I didn't hack up a. No, I turned away. Stop it! I turned away from you.
I wondered what that dust cloud was.
No, stop it! Stop it!
Rolling
all of you.
Stone over
it's
here.
Outrageous.
Yeah.
It's outrageous.
If I can't speak tomorrow, you'll know why. All right, so we had 2 ladies on bye. That was Anita Marks and bride mom-to-be Bree, so they automatically roll over into the next round of the playoffs. But the matchups were Sarah from New York and Husband Bajaya. Husband Bajaya wins, and basically her top 3 in her roster were amazing. Roethlisberger with 28 points. Jordan Howard, thank you very little for what he did for me in the War Room League when I needed him. But this week, 27 points. And Todd Gurley with 27 points. Oh, by the way, Antonio Brown with 32. She had a ridiculous 163 points.
Wow.
Sarah from New York put up 102, which is a very respectable score any week, but just could not overcome that ridiculous performance from Husband Bajaya. So good for her. Come at me, bro. Name, game, drop Lee. Name, game, drop Lee rode Le'Veon Bell. 38 points from Le'Veon Bell, and that really was the most of the difference. Otherwise, it was a pretty even matchup for them. Unfortunately, Josh McCown was injured. That hurt. But Name, game, drop Lee moves ahead, and she will face bride mom-to-be Bree. Anita Marks faces husband Bajaya Sharma. So have at it, ladies.
Congratulations to all those ladies in the semifinals of the Women's League, and then finally the Celebrity League.
By the way, before we just move on, I just have to say, even though I got destroyed in the Women's League,
yes.
And I'll own up to it. I won't make excuses. Sure. Matthew Berry, looking at you.
Looking at me? What are you looking at me for?
Yeah, I can't imagine why. But these women have been so good in this league that every time I was frustrated on my roster and wanted to make moves, I couldn't. Like they were on the waiver wire. I'd be like, oh shoot, I bet I can sneak in and get gone. Like they were so good at making moves and keeping their rosters active. And
good
I'm
for
just
them.
saying it was a very involved league.
That is awesome. So let's turn now to the congratulations to all the men and the women in the men's league and the women's league that are moving on. Let's turn now to the celebrity league.
Yes.
So I was playing Lord and Miller, of course, directors of 21 and 22 Jump Street and the Lego Lego movies and great writers and directors and Last Man on Earth and on TV. They do a bunch of TV shows as well. Anyway, so I was against Lord and Miller. They had Kenyon Drake last night, which made me a little bit nervous. But they also had Kenny Stills. I had Chris Hogan going, so not great. But I also had Deion Lewis, and luckily I had Alex Collins and Phillip Rivers. So I defeat Lord and Miller, able to take them down. I move on to the semifinals where I will play our number 1 seed, the Spicy Tomatoes.
Looking forward to that one.
Me and Field Yates going head-to-head in the semifinals.
Seems rigged here.
And the other two, again, it's a 16-team league, our celebrity league. So in the game of the week, Anthony Mackie, great actor, of course, Falcon from the Avengers, and our friend Miles Teller, I mean, Anthony Mackie's our friend too. We just haven't met him yet. Anyway, Anthony Mackie defeats Miles Teller 152-138. Just an unbelievable game between the two.
High-scoring matchup.
Very high-scoring matchup. So
tough week for our friend Miles Teller, who's the Eagles fan.
He is an Eagles fan, but he is the defending champ.
But I mean, that's tough when you are the second highest scoring team
in the playoffs in a 16 team
in a week. He was the second. So of the 14 teams that played, I guess 15 whatever. A lot of teams played this week. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 14 teams played, and he was the second highest scoring team.
Right.
138 points and you lose. So that's tough puck luck right there.
Really tough for Miles Teller. Again, our defending champ.
That's a tough finish for them.
Yeah. Miles Teller is a legit, in addition to being a great actor, he's also a legit fantasy football player. So nice job, Miles, on a great season. Tough luck. And congratulations to Anthony Mackie, moving on to the semifinals where he will play Zac Efron.
The pesky Zac Efron-led Team Efron.
It's just every time you're like, he's so lucky.
Well, so Zac Efron, he defeats Anna Faris and Sim Sarna, from the
pitcher's duel here.
Yeah, pitcher's duel. It was a low-scoring game here, but it all counts. On the scoreboard it doesn't matter anyway. So Zac Efron squeaks by Anna Faris and Sim Sarna. Of course, they do the Anna Faris's Unqualified podcast. Very funny. It's adult. So if you're a kid listening, I just want to say it is not safe for work or school, but very funny stuff. We love Anna and Sim.
And they had a
great team. They were
ridiculously talented team. Their team was so good.
I played them in the final week of the regular season to get that first round bye.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were going to beat me. They were the highest scoring team in the league throughout the regular season. Unfortunately, just some guys that just didn't pull through at the right time.
You want to just talk about so they lost by 2 points.
First of all,
First off, just the fact they lost by 2 points. But you look at their roster. They have Alvin Kamara. Yeah. So that's just obviously a tough break. Losing by 2 points. They had the Steelers defense. Which it's a 16-team league, but you thought, at home against the Ravens, -3. So again, if they start no defense, if they literally just leave it blank, they're moving on because it was -3. They lost by 2. So just they got 2 points out of Cameron Brate, Kirk Cousins with a brutal game and 8. Just a tough game. And Jesse James. They started Cameron Brate over Jesse James at tight end, which makes total sense. But of course, Jesse James had 19. Cameron Brate just with 2. But anyway, the fact of the matter is that our semifinals are now set. So it is Anthony Mackie versus Zac Efron and myself versus Field. One of the 4 of us will be the Fantasy Focus Podcast Celebrity League champion in 2017.
We look forward to that on Wednesday's show. We're going to have kind of a mix-up here. We're going to have Matt Bowen join us for a portion of the show, as well as our buddy Mike Clay on Wednesday's show. We're looking forward to having.
We're doing we're doing the fantasy show. Just so people know, we're doing the fantasy show tomorrow early. We're doing it very early. There's a
commitment you have to be at.
There's a commitment that I have to be at tomorrow that a lot of people have to be at, actually, here at ESPN. It's where there's a big meeting here.
Sure.
But anyway, so we're doing the fantasy show early, so as a result, Mike Clay and Matt Bowen are going to fill in for me. I will be back on Thursday.
Yeah, it should be a great show on Thursday. Of course, we'll continue to keep you updated. It's the playoffs, and we understand that a lot of our analysis says, you're starting these guys, but we're going to have some fun here. We're going to mix it up. We're going to have a great time. This is the highlight of our year, being on this podcast every single day. We are dwindling down in terms of the number of days, number of shows we have less. So our promise to you is to stay as mediocre as possible for the next 2.5 weeks.
We can do it. I believe in us.
Anybody can do it. It is us. Until then, we are back on Wednesday. Watch Matthew's TV show. It's on today at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN2. Follow Stephania on Instagram, StephaniaB87 and Stephania_ESPN. Matthew's at MatthewBerryTMR on all forms of social media, except for the Fantasy Life app. He's just Matthew Berry. I'm at Field Yates. And I got to be honest with you guys, when we say this, we mean it. We'd like you guys to follow us. It actually means a lot to us because this is the way that we can stay engaged with you during the offseason in particular, when the fantasy ramifications kind of tempo down. Follow us.
Please do.
Engage. Interact.
For me, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, all Matthew Berry TMR, and then Fantasy Life app, which is fantastic. And I'm at Matthew Berry on the Fantasy Life app. And to be honest, I think I respond more on the app than I do anywhere else.
Yeah. Follow me on Twitter. That's where my favorite medium for sure. And that's it.
Anyway, so we always appreciate the follows and we appreciate the likes. And hey, if you want, Facebook.com/Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life with an S. So I have my fantasy minions there that, answer questions and everything like that. We have some fun on that as well. Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life. Again, remember the S. There's question and answers every Sunday morning on that.
All right, guys.
Well. So there you go.
We'll talk to you mañana. Peace out.
The theme song of the Fantasy Focus was created and performed by Eric Hutchinson. Check out more of his music at erichutchinson.com. Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Focused Football Podcast. For more great podcasts, listen on the ESPN app or subscribe on iTunes.
You can always count on Bud Light, just like you can always count on Always Game Gary. No bar is too far. No wing sauce is too hot. Not for Gary. Always Game Gary is famous among friends. He deserves a Bud Light. Enjoy responsibly. Bud Light Beer, AB St. Louis, Missouri.